My parents were addicts until they weren't. Went to about 11 elementary schools. Grew up homeless. Lived in 2 shelters in San Francisco, two in Oakland. And education really was the refuge. It was like, that was the thing that was going to get me, out of poverty. And it's something that when you go to that many schools, you start to notice differences and you notice things. And, I didn't go to the best schools. So when I became an adult and I got to see more and more schools, it became an easy career for me to pursue, just by having a lot of different experiences. But I know that, I come from people that have a high level of agency where you got to make things happen. And even when the system isn't doing what it needs to do, you got to push on that system while at the same time having plans A, B, and C. And so that's a little bit about me.
What is the issues that the system has, the education system has, that you see based
have
on
a
your
ton.
experience and what you've studied?
Yeah, I think I have a ton. I think that when you can predict with a certain level of accuracy how well in life somebody is going to do education-wise by how much money they make, I think that is a sign of a rigged system. I think that if you don't know how to navigate this education system and take everything that you need from it, you're not going to get the things that you necessarily deserve. And so the system is inadequate in that the level of quality that young people that may be born in poverty, immigrants, whatever the case is, they're not getting, what they deserve. They're not getting the very best. And I think that's a big problem. And so, listen, man, any system where you can look at 3rd grade reading levels and then predict how many prisons need to be built, I would say that system has some flaws.
So you grew up in the Bay Area, in Oakland, and you went to 11 schools. What did you see? What do you think is the challenges these schools are facing?
I think they're facing a bunch of different ones. I think that around what the priorities are. So, for instance, a lot of people like to talk about Kentucky in a bad way. I used to live in this place called Paducah, Kentucky, but they were so adamant about reading, like making us do reading competitions and reading out loud, things like that. So when I got to my school in Oakland, I had this really thick Kentucky accent. It was very thick, hard to understand. But it almost resulted in me being put in special education. And so I got lucky because on Thursdays was read out loud day. And it came my turn to read. And I stood up and read, and I was the best reader in the class. So in that moment, I went from being earmarked to go to a special education class to then being a part of the GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program. And that's flippant, man. Like that is so irresponsible. But that was just the luck of the draw. So some things that these schools are missing is a level of stability where you can also like have the amount of rigor and scrutiny that is, required if you're educating the masses. I think that when you go to a poor school and a poor community, I don't think there is a high level of academic accountability and rigor. And that's part of the thing we're going to talk about today, which is inflated grades. I graduated with a 3.83 something high. I graduated really, really well. I had A's and B's and AP English classes, but then I was in remedial English when I went to university. The same with math. And I think that that's a problem. And so what I try to do is I'll always push the system, brother, always. But I tell parents and students that you have to have enough knowledge on your end to push them and get what you need. So when you get that report card and that report card says an A and you're a parent, say, thank you, that I'm glad the kid got an A. Is my child proficient? Are they reading on grade level? And if they're not, what's the plan to get them on grade level? What do I need to be doing outside of this classroom? How do we work together? So
you went through this experience. You had a really good GPA, and then you went to college. You realized your level of reading and math is not adequate compared to the GPA you had. Do you think this is common nowadays in Oakland schools?
I think it's common all throughout the country, but absolutely in Oakland. It's common because there are societal pressures that get put on schools, and Oakland's one of them. I think the Office of Civil Rights had to come in one time because of suspensions. And so what then happens is, well, schools will stop suspending. They'll do in-school suspension, right? The numbers will look different. I think that when you talk about how poorly Black kids or brown kids are performing as far as graduation is concerned, then grades get inflated sometimes and you graduate more young people, but the proficiency or them being able to go to college and thrive in college isn't always there. I do think that people are trying hard. I've worked in the district. I know a lot of those people. I know a lot of educators that give it their all every single day. And yet and still, we are still very, very far behind. I don't blame students. I don't blame parents per se. I think that we spend a lot of time on blame instead of just like, what is the issue? But if that many young people, if 2 or 3 out of 10 young Black kids are reading on grade level, we have a problem. We have a serious issue. And that conversation needs to be had, not for political gain, not for clout, not to, not to put adults in better positions, but how do we actually solve this type of issue? Because here's the thing. If I didn't graduate from high school, if I didn't get into college, if I didn't graduate from college and, fall into becoming a doctor, whatever the case is, I know that my life would have turned out very different. There are absolutely more men in my family that have been to jail than have been to college. That's just a fact of my life and of my family. I visited my own mom and dad in jail before, and God bless, they're doing great now. They got clean when I was in middle school. But not to belabor the point, I think if their education would have been different, I think if their economic opportunities as a result of that education would have been different, I don't think I would have had to visit both my parents in jail and live in and out of shelters and systems and things like that.